Hey guys, let's get more news about Warriors, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Would this potential blockbuster trade allow Warriors to compete for a championship? The Golden State Warriors flashed a brilliant start to the season, only to have their recent 5-game losing streak undo a lot of that success. The team is now looking for answers on how to bolster their championship push. After off-season rumors linked the Warriors to the likes of Paul George, Lauri Markkanen, and others, nothing materialized. However, they are still positioned to do damage on the trade market when the opportunity presents itself. A name that should be available before this year's NBA trade deadline is New Orleans Pelicans forward Brandon Ingram. The former All-Star has been involved in trade rumors dating back to the offseason. With the Pelicans involved in a nightmarish start to the 2024-25 NBA season, it should not surprise anyone if they are sellers before the deadline. Ingram is on an expiring contract and is set to hit unrestricted free agency in the 2025 offseason. If he is not a part of the future plans for the Pelicans, one would imagine New Orleans would look to recoup some sort of value for the star forward. Speaking of value, Jonathan Kuminga has experienced a noteworthy decline in that category. The potential breakout candidate has failed to live up to expectations in the 2024-25 season. The lack of a rookie extension for Kuminga and his decreasing value could force the Warriors to re-evaluate his fit amid one last push for a championship in the Stephen Curry era. Warriors may significantly benefit from Jonathan Kuminga's mistake. After a breakout period during the second half of last season, Jonathan Kuminga's contract situation was always going to be a huge talking point ahead of his fourth season with the Golden State Warriors. Yet unlike fellow fourth-year lottery pick Moses Moody, Kuminga and the Warriors were unable to come to terms on a new contract prior to the October 21 extension deadline. Looking to secure his first big payday in the league, Kuminga and his management were rightfully after as big a contract as they could possibly get. He saw his fellow members of the 2021 draft class, namely Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes and Franz Wagner, get max deals of 5 years and in excess of $220 million. There was a lot of conjecture on what Kuminga and his management ultimately wanted, and what the Golden State front office were willing to offer. Now, according to a recent report from Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, the young forward had no interest in taking anything less than a 5-year, $175 million contract. Instead, nothing came close on a similar 5-year, $150 offer for Kuminga because it seemed like the least he would have considered was a 5-year, $175 million deal, Scotto wrote. Based on his uncertain role to start this season and the very few teams who have cap space heading into next offseason, Kuminga may have made a major mistake in not being willing to take less on an extension, particularly if the Warriors were willing to offer something in the range of $150 million. The 22-year-old started the first 3 games of the season but has made just one since. Kuminga is currently averaging 13.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 1.8 assists on 43.1% shooting from the floor and 29% from three-point range, all worse numbers than last season. It's not as if his role hadn't wavered throughout his first 3 years in the league, meaning that should have been viewed as a distinct possibility when evaluating whether or not to take an extension offer prior to the season. From a front office perspective, the Warriors now have far more flexibility in what they could do from a trade standpoint without having to take into account an impending Kuminga extension. His restricted free agency will still have to factor into any decision they make, but there's still far more optionality than what they would have had. Kuminga's early season form would suggest he's far from a $150 million player, let alone the $175+ million he was after. Perhaps Golden State learned a thing or two about patience after the Jordan Poole situation, and they could reap the benefits in ensuring they're not locked into a contract that could have quickly drawn a wave of criticism. Warriors among betting favorites to trade for $160 million wing. The Golden State Warriors spent the summer unsuccessfully seeking a trade to find Stephen Curry, a second star who can rival Kevin Durant or a pre-injury Klay Thompson. As such, finding that player presumably remains the franchise's top goal with approximately 1 month remaining before the NBA's February 6 trade deadline. In that context, the online sportsbook Bovada on Wednesday, December 4, slated the Warriors among the top 5 contenders to deal for star forward Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans. Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans, left, guards Andrew Wiggins of the Golden State Warriors, right, during an NBA game. Ingram is an elite scorer, having averaged between 20.8 to 24.7 points per game in each of the past 6 campaigns. He earned All-Star honors in 2019-20, his 4th year in the league and first in New Orleans after playing his initial 3 seasons as a member of the Lakers. However, Ingram isn't the ideal candidate to pair with Curry for a number of reasons. Part of his game resembles Durant's in that he can use his size, 6 feet, 8 inches, to create his own shot in isolation and hit tough mid-range jump shots over longer defenders. That skill is useful during clutch time in the last 5 minutes of close games as well as during the playoffs, when defenses are generally better and play tighter possession in and possession out. That said, Ingram is a high-usage player, at least 28% every year but one in the past 6 seasons, and far from lights out behind the three-point line, 36.3% for his career, per Basketball Reference. He is also a below-average defender and is slight enough that bigger defenders can bully him when he's playing offense. Brandon Ingram of the New Orleans Pelicans, left, guards Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat, right, during an NBA game. The Pelicans are 4-18 this season, which is the second worst record in the NBA, and part of that is due to injuries. However, the fact remains that Ingram is almost certain to leave in free agency if the team can't trade him over the next month, which means a borderline all-star level talent walking out the door for nothing. That reality, plus the size of Ingram's contract, should drive his trade price down. The only way he makes sense for the Warriors as a trade chip is on a half-season rental that doesn't cost them much in terms of personnel or assets. What exactly the Pelicans might accept in return is hard to say, as the team spent the summer looking for a big man. But with New Orleans' season all but a lost cause at this point, the Warriors should have the leverage in any conversations, as the Pelicans openly tried to trade Ingram over the summer and were unable to find a deal. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Brandon Ingram? Leave your opinion in the comments.